What would you call a mother who drags her 7 months pregnant daughter out of the kitchen by her hair and dumps her in a parking lot during a blizzard? Cruel doesn't cover it. Monster is closer. That night in January, as I knelt on the frozen asphalt behind my mother's restaurant with ice soaking through my uniform and my baby kicking in panic, I watched through the back door as she and my brother clinked champagne flutes over the dish I'd spent 3 years perfecting. My recipe, my creation, their celebration. The snow was falling so hard I couldn't see the street. My phone had died an hour ago, the battery drained from the cold. And the man who would eventually carry me to safety, the man whose face would drain every drop of color from my mother's skin in front of 300 guests and 11 television cameras, he was already closer than any of us knew. My name is Sienna Marchetti. I'm 29 years old, and what you're about to hear is how a lifetime of being told I was nothing ended with a single plate of food that cost my family everything they'd stolen from me. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're listening from. Every story like mine needs witnesses. Let me take you back to where it started. The Marchetti family ran Rosalia's, a fine dining Italian restaurant in Chicago's River North neighborhood. My grandmother Rosalia opened it in 1971 with nothing but a suitcase of recipes and $200 sewn into her coat lining. By the time I was born, it was an institution, 3 Michelin stars. A reservation waitlist that stretched 6 months. Presidents ate there, movie stars proposed there. My grandmother's bolognese was once called the single greatest dish in American dining by the New York Times food critic. When Nonna Rosalia died, she left the restaurant to my mother, Gloria. And that's when everything changed. My mother believed in one thing above all else. Legacy belongs to men. My brother Dominic, 2 years older, handsome, loud, and utterly incapable of boiling water without burning it, was anointed as the heir apparent the day he turned 18. Executive chef in title, Gloria's golden boy in practice. And me? I was the girl who prepped vegetables, the one who scrubbed pots after closing, the invisible hands behind every dish that left that kitchen. Here's what nobody outside our family knew. Dominic couldn't cook. Not really. He could plate beautifully, talk to the press like a natural, flash that smile for the cameras. But the recipes, the technique, the innovation that kept Rosalia's at 3 stars for a decade, that was all me, working from the prep station in the back corner where no customer or journalist could ever see my face. I was 22 the first time my brother stole my work publicly. I'd spent 4 months developing a deconstructed osso buco that reimagined every element of my grandmother's original. Saffron foam, marrow butter pearls, a gremolata ice that dissolved on the tongue. I'd tested it 200 times, adjusting every gram, every temperature, every second of cook time. The night Chicago Magazine came for their annual review, Dominic walked that dish out himself, stood at the critics' table, described the inspiration, the technique, the months of development. My months, my inspiration, my technique. The review ran the following week. Dominic Marchetti proves himself a worthy heir to Rosalia's throne. His deconstructed osso buco is a love letter to tradition, wrapped in genius innovation. I read that review standing in the walk-in freezer, so nobody would hear me cry. My husband, Marco, found me there 20 minutes later, shivering between shelves of stock. He was a line cook at a bistro downtown. Gentle hands, kind eyes, not a cent of family money. My mother called him a dishwasher every chance she got. "You have to say something, Sienna. This is insane." "Family stays together," I whispered. "Nana always said that." "Your Nana also said the person who cooks the food owns the food." Marco's voice was fierce. "She'd be sick if she saw this." He was right. But I was too afraid. My mother controlled everything. The restaurant, the family trust Nana had left me, even the apartment I lived in, which was technically owned by Marchetti Holdings. If I spoke up, I'd lose it all. So I swallowed it. Again. That was 7 years ago. Since then, Dominic had taken credit for 31 of my original dishes. I kept count in a notebook I hid inside a hollowed-out cookbook on my shelf. Julia Child's Mastering the Art of French Cooking, Volume 2. Every recipe, dated, with my handwritten notes, photographs of my test plates, and time-stamped videos I'd secretly recorded on my phone during development. I didn't know why I kept them. Insurance, maybe. Or proof that I existed. Then Marco died. A grease fire at the bistro where he worked. He went back in to pull out a coworker who'd been trapped. Saved the man's life. Lost his own. He was 31 years old, and the last thing he'd texted me that morning was, "Don't forget, you're brilliant." I was 4 months pregnant with our daughter when I buried him. My mother did not attend the funeral. She said she had a supplier meeting. Dominic sent a text. "Sorry for your loss," followed by a shrug emoji. A shrug emoji for the death of my husband and the father of my child. 3 weeks after the funeral, my mother called me into her office at the restaurant. I thought maybe, finally, she'd say something human. Instead, she slid a document across her mahogany desk. "I'm restructuring the trust your grandmother left you. As trustee, I have the authority to freeze distributions if I determine the beneficiary is financially unstable. I'm not financially unstable. You're a pregnant widow, with no income outside this restaurant." Her eyes were cold. "Sign this, and I'll continue your salary and cover your prenatal care." The document gave her full control of my $3 million inheritance until I turned 35, 6 years away. I signed it. What choice did I have? My rent was paid by Marchetti Holdings. My health insurance was through the restaurant. Marco's life insurance was tangled in probate because the bistro's owners were contesting the claim, arguing he'd violated safety protocols by re-entering the building. Every penny of my existence depended on the woman sitting across that desk, and she knew it. "Good girl," my mother said, and those 2 words burned worse than anything, but something shifted in me that day. A door closed, and behind it, something quiet and furious began to build. 2 weeks later, I created an anonymous food blog called La Figlia Nascosta, The Hidden Daughter. I posted my recipes there, all of them, every dish Dominic had ever claimed, with my original development notes, my handwritten calculations, my videos. No face, no name, just the food and the truth. Within 3 months, the blog had 200,000 followers. Within 6 months, food industry insiders were obsessed. Who was this anonymous genius rewriting the rules of Italian-American cuisine? James Beard Award committees were asking questions. The Food Network reached out through my anonymous email. But the message that changed everything came from a name I recognized. Victoria Park, the most feared and respected restaurant critic in America. She'd shut down empires with a single review and launched careers with a paragraph. Her email was 3 sentences. "I know this is real. I know this is important. I want to meet the person behind these recipes." I told her the truth. All of it. The stolen credit, the frozen trust, the dead husband, the pregnancy. Everything except my name. Her response: "I believe you, and I have a plan, but you have to trust me." I trusted her. It was the first time I'd trusted anyone since Marco died. For 2 months, Victoria and I worked in secret. I developed new recipes, pushing boundaries I'd never dared to explore under my mother's roof. A black truffle gelato with aged balsamic that made Victoria cry the first time she tasted it. A handmade pasta so thin you could read a newspaper through it, stuffed with a filling that tasted like a memory of summer. I cooked these dishes in the kitchen of Marco's best friend Carlos, who owned a small taqueria in Pilsen, and asked no questions. Victoria documented everything. Time-stamped photos. Video testimony from Carlos confirming dates. Notarized development logs. She was building a case, though I didn't fully understand for what. Then came January 15th. I was 7 months pregnant. The baby had been active all day, restless, as if she knew something was coming. Dr. Nguyen had warned me at my last appointment. "Your blood pressure is elevated. Preeclampsia indicators. Any extreme stress could trigger a crisis. Do you have a support system?" I lied and said yes. That evening, my mother called a mandatory family meeting at the restaurant. Important announcement, she said. Be there at 7. Don't be late. When I arrived, the kitchen was gleaming. Every station clean, every surface polished. My mother stood at the pass in her signature black dress, a glass of champagne in her hand. Dominic leaned against the counter in a designer jacket, scrolling his phone. Sit down, Sienna, my mother said. I sat on the prep stool nearest the back door. My usual place, the furthest seat from the warmth. We've been invited to compete in the National Culinary Summit in New York, my mother announced, her eyes bright with ambition. 300 guests. 11 TV crews. Every major food critic in the country. The winner gets a 5-year partnership with the Park Hospitality Group. Do you know what that means? $100 million in restaurant expansion. My heart stopped at the name. Park Hospitality Group. Victoria Park's family company. She hadn't told me about this. Dominic will present the tasting menu, of course, my mother continued. We need 5 courses that represent the future of Marchetti cuisine. Sienna, you'll develop all 5 dishes. Dominic will present them as his own. As usual. She said it so casually. As usual. Like stealing my work was just another line item on the prep list. I need the recipes finalized in 3 weeks, Dominic added, not looking up from his phone. Make them good. This is my shot at a James Beard nomination. Your shot, I repeated quietly. My mother's eyes narrowed. Is there a problem? No, I said. No problem. But there was a problem. Because Victoria Park was the head judge of the National Culinary Summit. And she already knew every dish I'd ever created. I spent the next 2 weeks developing the menu. 5 courses, each one a masterpiece. Each one documented in triplicate with timestamps, videos, and Victoria's quiet verification. And each night, after leaving the restaurant, I drove to Carlos's taqueria and cooked the same 5 courses again, perfecting variations that only I knew about. A secret version. A better version. January 15th started normally. I arrived at the restaurant at 6 a.m. to begin prep for a special tasting. My mother had arranged for a group of local food writers. By noon, I'd finished prepping all 5 courses for the event. That's when Dominic walked into the kitchen with Kevin Wu, a food photographer from Chicago Tribune. He wants to shoot me developing the summit menu, Dominic said casually, for the feature they're running next week. I stood at my prep station, 7 months pregnant, wearing the same stained kitchen whites I'd worn every day for 7 years, and watched my brother pose at my station with my ingredients and describe my creative process as if he'd dreamed it up himself. The photographer asked him to demonstrate a technique, the pasta folding method I'd invented, and Dominic fumbled it 3 times before my mother stepped in and changed the subject. I said nothing. But under my apron, my hands were shaking. By 5 p.m., the tasting event was over. The food writers had raved. Dominic had glowed. My mother had beamed. And I had cleaned every dish, scrubbed every pot, and mopped every floor, 7 months pregnant, on my feet for 11 hours. I was putting on my coat when my mother appeared in the kitchen doorway. Before you go, I need the final summit recipes. All 5, written out, with every measurement and technique. On my desk by tomorrow morning. I'll have them ready. Good. She paused. And Sienna? This summit is the most important event in Marchetti history. If anything goes wrong because of your condition, she gestured vaguely at my belly, there will be consequences. Something in her voice made the hair on my arms stand up. My condition is a baby. Your grandchild. My grandchild, she said flatly, will not interfere with this family's legacy. I drove home through the first flurries of what the weather service was calling a historic blizzard. Winds were already picking up. The temperature was dropping fast. My apartment, a small 1-bedroom above a dry cleaner in Lincoln Park, felt emptier than ever. I sat at the kitchen table where Marco and I used to eat breakfast together, placed my hand on my belly, and felt our daughter kick. We're going to be okay, I told her. I promise. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Everything is in place for the summit. Trust the process. You're almost free. I fell asleep with my hand on my stomach and Marco's photo on the pillow beside me. The next morning, January 16th, I woke to 3 inches of snow and a voicemail from my mother. Get to the restaurant now. Emergency. I drove through the storm, windshield wipers barely keeping up, and arrived to find my mother and Dominic in the kitchen. My mother's face was white with rage. My brother looked like he'd seen a ghost. On the prep counter sat a printed copy of my blog. La Figlia Nascosta. Every page, every recipe, every time-stamped entry. What is this? My mother asked, her voice dangerously quiet. My blood went cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Dominic found it. The blog. The recipes. They're yours, aren't they? I said nothing. My heart was hammering. A sharp pain radiated across my lower abdomen, and I gripped the counter edge. Dominic stepped forward. Do you have any idea what you've done? If anyone connects this blog to our restaurant, to our dishes, everything falls apart. The summit, the Michelin stars, my reputation, everything. Your reputation, I whispered, was built on my food. The slap came from my mother, open palm across my cheek. The sound cracked through the kitchen like a gunshot. You ungrateful little parasite. She was shaking. Everything you have, your job, your apartment, your health insurance, I gave you all of it. And this is how you repay me? By trying to humiliate your brother? I was still holding the counter, one hand on my cheek, the other on my belly. The baby was going very still. Mom, I need to sit down. My blood pressure. Dominic grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the back door. You don't get to sit down. You don't get to be in this kitchen. You're done. It's a blizzard outside. I'm 7 months pregnant. Please. My mother opened the back door. Wind and snow screamed into the kitchen. The temperature outside was 9 degrees. Wind chill made it feel like -15. You can come back inside when you give me every password, every login, every copy of that blog. All of it. Deleted. Tonight. I'm not deleting it. It's mine. My work. Then, stay outside until you change your mind. Dominic pushed me through the doorway. Not hard enough to knock me down, but hard enough that I stumbled off the loading dock step and onto the icy parking lot. My ankle twisted. I caught myself on a dumpster, barely staying upright. The door slammed behind me. I heard the deadbolt turn. Through the small window beside the door, I could see them. My mother poured herself a glass of wine. Dominic pulled out his phone, probably texting, already moving on. Neither of them looked back at me. The wind was brutal. Within minutes, my coat was soaked through with wet snow. My fingers were going numb. I limped to the door and knocked. Please, it's 9 degrees. The baby. Let me come inside and we'll talk. No response. My mother raised her glass toward the window in a mocking toast, then pulled down the blind. I tried my phone. Dead. The battery had been low when I arrived, and the cold killed it completely. My car was in the lot, but my keys were in my purse, which was sitting on the kitchen counter inside. I could see it through the window, on the shelf by the door. 10 feet away, behind 2 inches of locked steel. I tried the front entrance. Locked. The side door. Locked. Every window. Sealed. I'd helped my mother install the security system 2 years ago. I knew every entry point, and I knew none of them would open without the code. So I stood in the parking lot behind my family's restaurant, 7 months pregnant, in a blizzard, with no phone, no keys, no way to call for help. The nearest open business was a gas station 4 blocks away. In normal weather, a 5-minute walk. In this storm, with my ankle already swelling and contractions beginning to tighten across my abdomen, it might as well have been 4 miles. 20 minutes. Then 40. I huddled against the building's brick wall where a small overhang blocked some of the snow. My teeth were chattering so hard I bit my tongue and tasted blood. The contractions were getting stronger, more regular. Something warm ran down my inner thigh, and I knew instantly it wasn't the snow melting. I was bleeding. No, I begged, pressing my hands against my belly. Not yet. Hold on. Just hold on. Through the window, the blind had shifted slightly. I could see a sliver of the kitchen. My mother and Dominic were eating. Plates of pasta, the recipe I'd developed last month, the one Dominic would present at the summit as his own creation. They ate my food while I bled in their parking lot. I screamed then. Not words, just sound. Raw, animal desperation. If anyone on the street heard me over the wind, they didn't come. An hour and 10 minutes. The blood was visible on my jeans now, dark against the denim, and I'd stopped shivering, which I knew from a college first aid class was actually worse than shivering. My body was giving up on trying to warm itself. I'd slid down against the wall into a sitting position, the snow collecting on my shoulders, in my hair. The baby hadn't moved in 30 minutes. Please, I whispered against my belly. Please move for Mommy. Please be alive. The parking lot lights suddenly went off. Through the window crack, I saw my mother switch off the kitchen lights. They were closing up, leaving, going home to warm beds while their daughter and grandchild froze in the dark. I heard the front door open and close, car engines starting, 2 sets of headlights pulling out of the lot. They left. They actually left me there. Darkness. Cold so deep it felt like burning. I couldn't feel my feet anymore. The blood had slowed, but I didn't know if that was good or terrible. The contractions had stopped too, which terrified me more than anything. I'm going to die here, I thought. Me and my daughter. In a parking lot behind a restaurant that serves my food. Then headlights. Not from the street, from the alley beside the building. Bright, cutting through the snow, illuminating me against the brick wall in my blood-soaked jeans and frozen coat. A car door. Footsteps. A man's voice, sharp with horror. Oh my God. Someone, call 911 right now. There's a woman back here. She's bleeding. She's pregnant. Jesus. She's barely conscious. Strong arms around me. A warm coat draped over my shoulders. The smell of expensive wool and cedar cologne. Ma'am, can you hear me? What's your name? We're getting you help right now. Sienna? I managed through cracked lips. The baby. Save my baby. More voices. A woman on the phone giving the address. The man lifted me like I weighed nothing and carried me to a black SUV idling in the alley, engine running, heater blasting. He laid me across the back seat, and the warmth hit me like a wall. I started shaking violently, my body suddenly remembering how cold it had been. Stay with me, Sienna. Help is coming. How far along are you? 7 months. Who did this to you? Why were you out here? Through the windshield, I could see the restaurant's sign. Rosalia's, in elegant gold script. My grandmother's name. My grandmother's dream, turned into the weapon that almost killed me. My family, I whispered. They locked me out. The man's face changed. Something quiet and extremely dangerous settled behind his eyes. He looked at the restaurant sign, then back at me. The ambulance arrived in 4 minutes. As the paramedics loaded me onto the stretcher, the man squeezed my hand. I'll be at the hospital. You're not alone anymore. In the ambulance, between the oxygen mask and the IV, and the frantic beeping of monitors, I heard one of the paramedics radio ahead. Female, approximately 30, 7 months pregnant, severe hypothermia, vaginal hemorrhaging, possible placental abruption, prolonged cold exposure, alert OB and NICU. I blacked out before we reached Northwestern Memorial. I woke to the most beautiful sound I've ever heard. A fetal heartbeat monitor, steady and strong, filling the room like a promise. My daughter was alive. A nurse noticed my eyes open. Welcome back, honey. You gave us a real scare. The baby? She's a fighter. Just like her mama. Dr. Patel appeared, her expression serious but kind. You were in critical condition when you arrived. Severe hypothermia, dangerously low blood pressure from blood loss, and early-stage placental abruption. Another 30 minutes outside, and we would have lost you both. The words hit me like a physical blow. 30 minutes. My mother and brother had left me in that parking lot, knowing I could die. The man who found you has been in the waiting room for 6 hours, Dr. Patel added. He paid for your entire admission and insisted on the VIP suite. She paused. Do you know who he is? I shook my head. The door opened, and he walked in. Tall, early 40s, salt and pepper hair, the kind of face that belonged on the cover of Forbes, because it had been on the cover of Forbes. Twice. James Whitfield. My brain struggled to process it. James Whitfield. Founder and CEO of Whitfield Hospitality Group. 200 restaurants across 3 continents. A man whose name was synonymous with culinary excellence. A man who could make or unmake any restaurant career with a phone call. How are you feeling? He asked, pulling a chair beside my bed. Confused. Why were you behind my mother's restaurant during a blizzard? He smiled slightly. Victoria Park called me. Said there was someone I needed to meet, a chef she'd been working with anonymously. I think she expected a meeting over coffee, not a rescue mission. Victoria. Of course. She also sent me your blog. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through La Figlia Nascosta. Every recipe, every note. His voice softened. I've been in this industry for 25 years, Sienna. I've eaten at every 3-star restaurant on earth. Your recipes are the most original, most emotionally honest food I've ever encountered. My eyes burned with tears. I was too exhausted to shed. Victoria also told me the rest. The stolen credit, your brother, your mother. He leaned forward. And now, seeing what they did tonight, I need you to understand something. I'm not just going to help you. I'm going to make sure they never do this to anyone again. But the summit, I started. The National Culinary Summit. Yes. He set his phone down. I'm the lead sponsor this year. Victoria is the head judge. And your mother and brother are scheduled to present your stolen recipes in front of 300 guests and the national media in 12 days. The irony was so precise, it almost felt designed. They'll present my food as Dominic's, I said. Like always. Not this time. James's eyes held something that looked like controlled fury. This time, the world will be watching. I spent 6 days in the hospital. Dr. Patel monitored my blood pressure hourly, adjusted medications, kept the baby safe. James visited every morning, bringing contracts, plans, and something I hadn't felt in years: respect. He asked my opinions like they mattered. Discussed flavor profiles like I was a colleague, not a servant. On the 3rd day, he showed me the security footage. His driver had a dash cam that captured the alley, including the restaurant's back door. The timestamp was clear. The footage showed my mother pulling down the blind while I pounded on the window. It showed them turning off the lights. And it showed 2 figures leaving through the front door 90 minutes later, walking past the alley without even glancing toward where I lay. I watched 10 seconds before turning away. You don't have to watch more, James said. But you need to know that Victoria, my legal team, and 2 investigative journalists have already seen it. Your mother is currently telling people you had a dramatic episode and left voluntarily. The lie was so predictable it almost didn't hurt. Almost. James outlined the plan. The summit would proceed. Dominic would present my stolen recipes. And then, in front of every camera and critic in the industry, the truth would come out. I need you there, James said. Not hiding, not anonymous. Standing in front of the world as the chef you are. What about my mother? If she finds out I'm alive and talking, she won't. As far as she knows, you're still in the hospital for a routine pregnancy complication. My people made sure of that. Your people? Sienna, I have 200 restaurants. Managing information is part of the job. On the 7th day, I was discharged with strict instructions. Minimal stress, blood pressure, monitoring every 4 hours, immediate return if any bleeding resumed. James arranged a private apartment near the hospital with round-the-clock medical support. I spent the remaining days before the summit doing 2 things: recovering my strength and finalizing the 5 courses I would cook with my own hands. Not Dominic's version of my recipes. My version. The real ones. Better, bolder, more purely mine than anything I'd ever created. February 2nd. The Waldorf Astoria, New York City. The National Culinary Summit Gala. 300 of the most powerful people in American food filled the grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers, ivory tablecloths, cameras everywhere. I watched through a crack in the kitchen door as the guests took their seats. Table 1. James Whitfield and the summit sponsors. Table 2. Victoria Park and the judging panel. Table 3. My mother, in a floor-length red gown, and Dominic, in a custom Italian suit, shaking hands with everyone within arm's reach, as if he owned the room. My mother was telling the couple beside her about the Marchetti legacy. 3 generations of culinary excellence, she said, her voice carrying. My son Dominic is the future of this family. James appeared beside me in the kitchen. Ready? I smoothed my chef's whites. Clean, pressed, with one small addition. A patch on my left sleeve embroidered with a hummingbird. Marco's favorite bird. He always said they were proof that small things could be impossibly powerful. Let's go. The evening began with Victoria Park taking the stage. Tonight, we celebrate the best of American cuisine. 5 finalist restaurants will present tasting menus judged by our panel. The stakes, a 5-year partnership with Whitfield Hospitality Group, valued at $100 million. My mother straightened in her chair, her eyes bright. Dominic was the 3rd presenter. He walked to the stage with the easy confidence of a man who'd never had to earn anything. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, flashing that camera-ready smile. The Marchetti family has been defining Italian-American cuisine for 3 generations. Tonight, I'm proud to present 5 courses that represent our future. The first course went out. My saffron risotto with crispy artichoke and lemon oil. Dominic described the inspiration, the months of development, the personal connection to our grandmother's legacy. The audience murmured appreciatively. Cameras clicked. My mother dabbed her eye with a napkin. Performance tears. She'd perfected them decades ago. Course 2, Course 3, each one mine, each one claimed. Dominic was charming, articulate, utterly convincing. Why wouldn't he be? He'd been rehearsing this lie his entire career. Then the 4th course arrived. The black truffle gelato with aged balsamic. The dish I'd created in Carlos's taqueria. The dish that made Victoria Park cry. This, Dominic said, leaning into the microphone, is my most personal creation. I developed it during a difficult period, after losing someone close to our family. It's about finding sweetness in darkness. He was talking about Marco's death. Using my husband's death to sell my stolen recipe. Something inside me went perfectly, beautifully still. Victoria took the microphone. Before our final course, I'd like to share something with the room. As chief judge, I've spent 2 years investigating a remarkable culinary voice that emerged anonymously online. A blog called La Figlia Nascosta, The Hidden Daughter, which published recipes of extraordinary originality and emotional depth. The screens around the ballroom lit up with screenshots from my blog. My recipes, my development notes, my handwritten calculations. My mother's champagne glass stopped halfway to her lips. This anonymous chef, Victoria continued, was eventually identified through extensive documentation, including time-stamped video of recipe development, notarized witness testimony, and digital forensic analysis. She looked directly at table 3. The person behind La Figlia Nascosta is not Dominic Marchetti. Silence. 300 people holding their breath. The dishes you've been eating tonight, every one of them, were created by someone this family has hidden, exploited, and abused for over a decade. Someone who was locked outside in a blizzard 3 weeks ago, 7 months pregnant, by her own mother and brother. Someone who nearly died alongside her unborn child while they ate dinner and drove home. Dominic's face had gone the color of raw dough. My mother gripped the tablecloth like it was the only thing keeping her upright. James Whitfield took the stage. Before I bring her out, I want to show you something. The screens changed to the dashcam footage. The timestamp, the blizzard, me, slumped against the wall, blood visible on my jeans, the restaurant's back door firmly shut. And then two figures, clearly identifiable, walking to their cars and driving away without looking back. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone whispered, "That's criminal." "Ladies and gentlemen," James said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority, "please welcome the true creator of every dish you've tasted tonight, and the lead chef of our new flagship restaurant, Sienna Marchetti." I walked out of that kitchen and into the light. 300 faces turned toward me. My chef's whites, my pregnant belly, Marco's hummingbird on my sleeve. I walked slowly, letting them see me, letting my mother and brother see me. The sound that broke the silence was a champagne glass shattering. Dominic's hand had gone limp. "No." My mother stood up, her chair screeching backward. "This is a lie. She's mentally unstable. She's been having episodes since her husband died." I reached the stage. James offered his hand and I took it. Steady. Calm. "Good evening," I said into the microphone. "My name is Sienna Marchetti. For the last decade, I've been the ghost in my family's kitchen." I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I spoke clearly, precisely, the way you describe a recipe. Each ingredient of truth measured and placed. Every award-winning dish at Rosalia's for the past 7 years was created by me. I have documentation for all of them. Development videos, handwritten notes, time-stamped digital files, and witness testimony. The screens showed the evidence. Side-by-side comparisons, my blog posts dated months before Dominic's public presentations. Video of me developing dishes in the restaurant's kitchen at 2 a.m., while my brother's car was absent from the parking lot. "That's fabricated," Dominic shouted from table 3. "She's my prep cook. She chops onions." Victoria Park stood. "I've personally verified every piece of evidence over a 2-month investigation. The documentation is irrefutable." She turned to the room. Additionally, Sienna Marchetti scored highest of any chef in this competition's blind tasting round, which was conducted last week without her family's knowledge. "Blind tasting?" My mother's voice cracked. 5 dishes, prepared anonymously, judged purely on excellence. James stepped forward. "Sienna scored a perfect 50 from all 11 judges. The first perfect score in the summit's 20-year history." My mother tried once more. "She's my daughter. This is a family disagreement, not a family disagreement?" Dr. Patel stood up from a table near the back. "I hadn't known she'd been invited. I treated Sienna Marchetti when she was brought to my ER 3 weeks ago. Core temperature 89 degrees. Active hemorrhaging. Blood pressure at stroke levels. She and her baby were minutes from death." She looked directly at my mother. "That's not a family disagreement. That's attempted homicide." The room erupted. Phones were out everywhere. Reporters were on their feet. James returned to the microphone with the calm of a man delivering a verdict. Whitfield Hospitality Group's decision regarding the partnership is as follows. Rosalia's restaurant is permanently blacklisted from all Whitfield properties and events. Furthermore, any establishment that continues to associate with Gloria or Dominic Marchetti will be excluded from our network. The weight of that statement settled over the room like a stone. Whitfield's network encompassed 200 restaurants, dozens of distributors, and relationships with every major food publication in the country. "You can't do this," my mother hissed. "We built Rosalia's from nothing." "Your mother built Rosalia's from nothing," I said quietly. "You built your reputation from my work." Dominic lunged toward the stage. 2 security guards intercepted him immediately. "This isn't over," he shouted, his composure completely shattered. "You're nothing without us. You're nothing." Victoria Park took the microphone one final time. "For the record," she said, looking at the cameras, "I'd like to announce that my review of Sienna Marchetti's cooking will run in the Times this Sunday." She paused. 3 words. Once in a generation. After the ceremony, the dominoes fell fast. Within 24 hours, the dashcam footage had gone viral. The Chicago Police Department opened an investigation into criminal endangerment. Rosalia's was flooded with 1-star reviews. Their Michelin inspection was suspended pending review. 3 major suppliers terminated contracts by noon the next day. By the end of the week, my mother's lawyer contacted mine, requesting a settlement. $7 million. Full release of my grandmother's trust. Lifetime restraining order. In exchange, I wouldn't pursue criminal charges. I took the deal. Not for them. For my daughter. A trial would mean months of stress my body couldn't afford. 2 weeks later, Gloria Marchetti closed Rosalia's doors for the last time. The gold sign came down on a Tuesday. I didn't watch. Dominic's wife, Sarah, called me on a Wednesday. "I'm taking the girls and leaving," she said. "When I saw that video of you in the parking lot, I thought, that could be me someday. That could be my daughters. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner." "You see it now," I told her. "That's what matters." My daughter was born on March 22nd at 7:14 a.m. 6 pounds, 2 ounces, perfect in every way. I named her Rosalia Marco Marchetti, my grandmother's strength, my husband's heart. As I held her in the golden morning light of my hospital room, surrounded by flowers from Victoria, James, Carlos, Dr. Patel, and dozens of people I'd never met who'd sent messages from across the country, I thought about that parking lot. The snow, the blood, the locked door. How close we'd come. "Your daddy would have been so proud," I whispered to her. "And your great-grandmother would have marched into that restaurant and broken the door down with a rolling pin." 3 months later, I opened my own restaurant. A small place in Wicker Park, 30 seats, open kitchen, so every customer could see exactly who was cooking their food. I called it La Figlia, the daughter. No hiding, no anonymity. My name on the wall, my face in the kitchen, my recipes on every plate. James Whitfield provided the startup capital. Victoria Park wrote the opening night review. And Carlos, Marco's best friend, came on as my sous chef. Every employee's name was listed on the menu beside their contributions. Credit where it belongs. Always. Within 6 months, La Figlia had a 3-month reservation waitlist. The James Beard Foundation nominated me for Rising Star Chef. Food and Wine put me on their cover. My mother wrote me a letter. I found it in the restaurant's mailbox on a Tuesday morning. 4 pages, handwritten. I read it once. She described her childhood, her own mother's impossible standards, the way she'd learned that love meant control and legacy meant more than people. She said she was in therapy. She said she understood if I never forgave her. I didn't write back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Forgiveness isn't something you owe people just because they share your blood. But I kept the letter. I put it in the same hollowed-out cookbook where I'd once hidden evidence of my stolen recipes. Julia Child, Volume 2. Some things belong in the same place. Dominic I haven't spoken to since the summit. Last I heard, he was working as a line cook at a chain restaurant in the suburbs. No cameras, no acclaim, no one else's talent to claim. Maybe he'll learn to actually cook someday. Maybe he won't. That's his journey, not mine. On Rosalia's first birthday, I closed the restaurant early and took her to the lakeshore. Lake Michigan was flat and silver in the late afternoon light. I held her on my hip and pointed at the skyline. "See that city? Your great-grandmother came here with $200 and a suitcase of recipes. She built something beautiful. Then some people tried to steal it. But recipes aren't just ingredients and measurements. They're the hands that make them. The heart behind the hands. Nobody can steal that." Rosalia grabbed my finger and squeezed. "Your daddy used to say the best meals aren't the fanciest ones. They're the ones made with honesty." A jogger passed behind us, and for a moment, the wind carried the smell of something cooking from somewhere nearby. Garlic, rosemary, bread, the smell of someone's home. I breathed it in and held my daughter closer. "We're home, baby girl. We built it ourselves, and nobody can take it from us." Thank you for listening to my story. If it meant something to you, subscribe to Distorted Family Revenge, and share this with someone who needs to hear that your talent belongs to you, no matter who tries to claim it. Drop a comment telling me, would you ever forgive a family that nearly cost you everything, or are some doors better left locked? I read every single one. Until next time, protect your gift. It's yours.